Really, really weird sequence of events. So,
Good penalty by Fred.
Yeah. I mean, it worked out. I guess we got a plus 12 out of it, but, yeah.
I was going to ask you, what is your rule on returning? I mean, I don't want to give any state secrets, but if Jakeem gets it and he's like 2 steps away from the end zone, do you think he should come out?
Yeah, it's really to really
not just Jakeem, but Sonoris.
Yeah, we handle it on it's really individual basis. So he treat each play like an individual event. So we kind of have rules for that play. So a lot of it has to do with game situation. It could be the team we're playing in terms of personnel. Hey, we think we have a good chance this week to maybe get a return. Obviously a lot of people have talked about the end of the game with the Rams and Packers. The ball was just over the goal line. So we're going to talk through those situations. Hey, if this one's in, we're staying in. The other day when the Houston kicked off from the 40-yard line, that was one. If that went into the end zone, I didn't care if it was 1 inch into the end zone, we were going to take a knee. So that's for an example. To start the game, had it been a yard or 2 deep, maybe a few yards, we would have maybe taken it out. But that was one really all game situation. How early is it? When is it? Is it the end of the half? Is it the end of the game? Is it a possible 2-minute situation like the Packers were going to be in the other day? And I feel for that guy because, when Montgomery fumbled that ball, it's easier. It's one of those easier said than done plays. He was told, we're going to take a touchback here. Those kickoffs, which we've discussed before, the ones that land right near the goal line are very difficult for the returner because if someone's not in his ear communicating exactly where he is on the field, it's very easy for that player to get lost a little bit. And typically you're not going to catch the ball and then look down. You have to have a kind of an awareness of where you are. So in those situations, usually what we would do is probably line up on the goal line, and if you step back at all, you're going to stay in. So, I feel for him. Obviously, it was a big play in that game. That's obviously got a lot of discussion this week about that. So, but for us, it's just really on an individual basis. So, hey, when we huddle up on the sideline, hey, on this one, this is our thought process. We're either going to stay in, we're going to come out. This is kind of our yard marker. Our alignments by the returners, all those things are going to kind of change play by play.
I have seen you use, I think it was on Hard Knocks because you've been here that long. I've seen you use film from other games as teaching moments for your special teams unit. Is that something that the Montgomery situation, is that something you've used?
100%. Yeah. So what we do every week, it's actually a weekly thing. We do a thing. Usually on Saturdays, it depends on the week, but usually on Saturdays we'll probably pull about 15 to 30 plays from around the league, and we call them plays of the week, and then we use those as teaching moments for the whole team.
Special teams?
Correct.
15 to 30 special teams plays?
Correct, from each week. And what we'll do is we'll use those, because what happens in the special teams world is you may have a situation that comes up, and it may be only a once-a-season thing, and you can't get reps at it, and so I could sit here and talk about it for a really long time. You could go through every phase, and there's all different crazy situations that come up in games. I know, when I was watching the Jets-Bears game the other day, and the announcer started talking about there was almost a fair catch kick. It was at the end of the half. I believe the Jets were punting. There was like 6 seconds left in the half, and in that situation, if the Bears or if the return team gets a fair catch, there's a very unique rule that you can actually get a free kick from the spot of the fair catch, and if it goes to the goalpost, you get 3 points. You never see it. It never comes up. It's a very, very odd situation. So if a team is deep in their own area with not a lot of time left in the half, there's a thing called the fair catch kick. And so if they kick the ball wherever they kick it, if you fair catch it, the fair catch rule is this. 99.999% of the time, what you see is you either run an offensive play or you get a free kick from the spot. Free kick meaning you can't bring out a tee, but you can have a holder come out and hold the ball. The kicker can take a full approach, kickoff approach, no blocking, or no. It's not a field goal formation, it's a kickoff formation. So you have to be 10 yards back, restraining area. And if he kicks the ball through the goalposts, you get 3 points. You never ever see it. It comes up once every 10 years. So, for example, I'm going to use that play in our meeting this Saturday and explain to our guys that, hey, this was a potential fair catch kick situation because you rarely see it. Now, we may have one of those come up every 4 decades, one every 40 years, but we got to be ready for it. And so in the special teams world, you have a lot of plays like that. So that's why we pull about 15 to 25 plays per week that come up, and we discuss them, and we go through them and go through the rules. I remember last week, one of the plays we had was Cincinnati. In the Cincinnati game, there's a kickoff right by the sideline. And their returner did a really good job. If the returner puts his foot out of bounds, and then touches the ball while his foot's out of bounds, he's considered to be out of bounds. You get the ball at the 40-yard line. So the ball kind of rolled near the sideline inside the 10, and their returner had great awareness. He went over, got his foot out of bounds, and then touched the ball, and they got the ball at the 40-yard line. So those are just a couple of small examples, but so that's why we do that every week. Ironically enough, this past week we had just watched, on Thursday morning, the day of the game, we actually just watched one of those plays, the opening kickoff, where with the 40-yard line, we watched somebody else make the mistake that morning. And then we went out that night and did it. So it doesn't always work. So the teaching doesn't always work. But so I was sitting to myself, we just watched that this morning. So, it's one of those deals where we try to use those teaching moments throughout the league because there's a lot of unique situations that come up. And so, that's something I could, the rules, there's very unique rules, and there's a lot of, the gunners out of bounds and re-enter and staying in the paint and all those kind of things that come up all the time that are very unique that we try to teach from other games because we may not get them in ours,
There's a website, I don't know if it's any good, but it's Football Outsiders, and they have a special teams formula which takes into account everything. Coverage, field goal, punts, weather, everything. And right now they have the Dolphins third in the NFL. Do you feel like that's a fair representation? Would you describe the first half of the season as excellent overall?
I'm a really tough grader. I wouldn't be a very good teacher. So I wouldn't, my grading scale might be a little different. I've seen a lot of those formulas before, and there's like 4 or 5 different ones, different websites and different things, and people use different things. And, sometimes you pull one thing in and put another in. You could go from third to first and from first to 12th and one play here or there. I think, I said this to the guys after the weekend. I think special teams wise, the first half of the year, we had a lot of highlights. We did a lot of good things. I felt like we were a little bit too inconsistent for my liking. I felt like we got to just play more consistent football. We were a little bit too many peaks and valleys. We did have some great plays, and kudos for those plays. But I felt like we left some plays on the table, and I felt like we can be just a little bit more consistent all the way through. And again, I'm probably not a fair guy to ask because I'm probably the hardest on myself first, and then the players second in terms of grading. But so I don't know if I would use the word excellent. I would say good to slightly below average. No, I just that's just me. I mean, I'm fairly tough on on terms of the grading scale, but so that's I've seen a lot of those. There's all different ones I've seen, and
I'll use the website that has a good grade.
Yeah, exactly. Whichever one has the highest, we'll use that one as gospel.
I gave you a B, by the way. I wanted to ask you. You've been here so long. You've been here quite a while. When you're struggling and possibly losing confidence as a team, and last year you faced a 5-game losing streak in this exact same stretch, how do you sort of inject confidence and self-awareness that, hey, the season is still alive?
Yeah, I think the first thing, no doubt about this, and we've talked about this before, is really keeping the one-game approach mentality. It's hard to do. It's certainly easier said than done, and it's certainly a little bit cliche-ish. There's no doubt about it. I get all that. However, I really think keeping the focus on one game, you guys know how hard it is to win one game in this league. It's hard to win just one game. And I think we have done, as a staff, Adam, starting with Adam and throughout the rest of the guys, is keeping the focus on the task at hand, on this game. This week, right now, Jets at home, that has got to be all in. It can't be looking behind. It can't be looking ahead. It can't be any of those things. And then what happens, as you all know, is you get one, and then you kind of start going one, and you stack them, and that's how you build confidence. On the flip side of the coin, what you're talking about, on the other side, where you lose a couple in a row, it's easy to lose confidence. And I think to recenter yourself and put the blinders on and get the focus right back on the immediate task, from a confidence standpoint, all the focus has to be on the Jets. And I think all the other thing, in my opinion, and I know a lot of everybody else in the building, is everything else outside that is just noise, and we got to really keep the focus on what we're doing right now. And to get the players' confidence back and everybody's confidence back. And I don't think there's a lack of confidence in the building. I really don't. I think right now, with where we are, we'd certainly like to have a better record. Where we are, we're right in the middle of things. And I think if we just take care of the job, week to week, we're going to be in the position we want to be in here at the end. And we could certainly be a little bit better, but we could certainly be a hell of a lot worse too. And we're right in the middle of this thing with a lot of games to play. And so, there's no reason. You guys know me pretty well. I certainly don't lack any confidence, and we're going to go out there and inject that into the players every day and kind of have that same approach every day.
When there is a surprise onside kick call,
Yeah.
is that Gate saying, "Hey, I want to run it," or do you come to him like, this might be a good time?
Yeah, we always have a couple of them up, and you just, you're always looking for the situation to do it in. It's obviously called a surprise onside for a reason. I've heard people say, that wasn't an onside kick situation. Well, no kidding. That's why they call it a surprise onside kick. So you don't want to do it in the most obvious of situations. We actually, I don't know, I can't get into the depth with this thing because I'm going to come across like I'm criticizing, and I don't want to do that. But I don't know if you were aware, the ball hit the wire for the camera. I don't know if you guys are aware, it hit the spider wire. It obviously wasn't seen. And it's an unfortunate situation because we actually had the play we wanted. And I feel like if it didn't hit the wire, we would have been in a much better situation to recover the ball. And then all of a sudden we have the ball at midfield, down by one score, and the whole game is different. And so I thought it was a great time to do it. There's, again, it's called a surprise for a reason. And, unfortunately, with the whole wire thing, and I've been asked a million questions about it. I mean, obviously, the officials at that time didn't see it. And by the time we got a replay, they had already run another play by the time we got video evidence, and it was too late to challenge it. And so that's really how that went down. I'm sorry?
What's the rule on the wire?
The rule on the wire is if the officials had seen it, it would have been a replay, just like the play never happened. Dead ball, replay, put the time back on the clock, and replay it down like it never happened. Ironically enough, I haven't seen one in a long time. And then if you watch the Florida-Georgia game, it happened again in their game on a punt. And their officials did see it, and they just replayed it down like it never happened. And so it is reviewable. However, we didn't get again, the whole video world, you're not going to replay something if you don't have. You're not just going to waste a challenge if you don't have video evidence. And so we didn't get a replay on the stadium board. We didn't get a replay in the booth until after they had unfortunately run a play. And so it didn't hit it by much, but it skimmed it enough to affect the ball, and the ball kind of dropped straight down instead of being wider where it was supposed to be. And so that's how that went down. So it was just an unfortunate situation. Call it what you will, but it just didn't work out. So.
How often do you say you guys practice onside kicks?
The kickers kind of have a weekly routine that they do it, and then we'll work on it. It's usually Friday, Saturday type things. We don't, we work on it, but we work on it every week. Yep. We're always going to have those kind of things up in the game plan, and what depends on when you want to use them, And that goes for all of our phases. You always have different gadgets and things that you're going to have, and it just depends on when the right time is to pull them out. Usually the right time to pull them out is when they work. Usually the wrong time to pull them out is when they don't work. So, so that's the life of a special teams coach. That's how it goes. So, all right, appreciate it, guys.
I was hoping there'd be a cool rule, like if it hits the wire.
Is about right. It's been about 75% of snaps. That said, he has the lowest passer rating against in the league of any cornerback. Mm-hmm. Have you, a single time since he was drafted, ever discussed playing him on the boundary? And have you considered giving him some of TJ's snaps at safety? Those two things.
Yes.
Yes on the first?
Yes to all of it.
Okay. And have you all determined that he could be a competent NFL corner on the boundary, or is that unclear to you?
I think he has a skill set. I think, it's been a while since he's done that and played on the outside, so again, there's a level of just, again, going through that process with him and trying to figure out, again, part of it mental, in terms of what we've put on his plate. So part of it, again, it's another position you're trying to spread him a little thin at. Again, the more he shows he's capable, I think it's a physical skill set. He has the ability to do that. And he has performed well in coverage situations for us, obviously. So, all those things have been discussed, and we're working through some of those things right now.
And I know obviously you're not going to say anything from a competitive standpoint, but with the decision with regard to whether he picks up any of TJ's safety snaps, is that something that's a possibility moving forward? If you're not willing to say it will or won't happen.
We're probably not willing to say any of that, but everything's a possibility. Obviously, we're addressing a lot of things on defense right now, so everything's a possibility for us.
What was your approach? I'm just curious kind of how you think about this. What was your approach to assessing your defense over the extended break that you had? How do you go about it?
Honestly, it was funny is probably not the right word to be using right now, but Adam and I didn't really get together. We kind of to me, we independently kind of came to the same conclusion. You know, I mean, I felt like our biggest issue was all the explosive plays. You know, we came in on Friday and just did. Everyone was in on Friday and did sort of our normal stuff and went through our grading process and that sort of thing. And I met with the defensive staff before we left and kind of laid a couple things out. And so I came in independently on Saturday and just took all our explosives from the season and went through that and sort of try to pinpoint exactly whether, again, it was schematic or just, you know, player or offensive scheme, you know, sort of where that was becoming an issue. You know what I mean? So that's where kind of my starting point was. I felt like, you know, even within the bad games we've been having, you know, there were, you know, good plays, you know, I mean, stuff like that within them. So it was like obviously where the explosives were happening. And I mean, Thursday night we gave up 3 2-play touchdown drives. You know what I mean? That's just silly. So, you know, that's where I started for myself. And it was funny that Adam kind of circled back with me, you know, a little bit later on, and he had kind of taken the same approach. So it was kind of interesting for me that we both kind of came to sort of that conclusion independently. You know, so that was kind of my really approach to like, hey, you know, I didn't necessarily think it was a, you know, where it's just a consistent like play after play after play after play after play. It was like these breakdowns are happening and these big plays are being created because of it. So where, like, try to dig in at where that was happening as a starting point.
Did you find common threads, or did you find that it's everything? It's just different things?
Yeah, I mean, it's that. I mean, there's threads, obviously. You know, I mean, you know, the frustrating thing for me, like last week, was, I mean, for example, in the run game, we had 23 explosive runs, 12-yard plus runs. That was on our cut up reel. 12 of them came in the last 2 games. I mean, over half. You know what I mean? So we're averaging 1.5 in the first 6 games, and we averaged 6 a game in the last 2 games. You know, so, you know, if there's a trend like that, or what's going on and how that's approaching. And some of that was there were a couple offensive runs that were kind of similar schematically that we were getting, and why we were having trouble fitting some of those runs up. So there's threads like that. You know what I mean? But you know, we obviously didn't play well, you know, so we played very poorly. So I don't think that, you know, in terms of like, this one thing was the cause of all this. Like, hey, we just stopped this one thing, that's it, you know what I mean? I mean, it was, you give up the yards you give up and the points you've been giving up. I mean, that's systemic, and there's issues at all levels that have to be addressed. So there were threads. I mean, there's obviously commonalities and some stuff, and those where you start to try to address things. But you know, I don't think it was like, hey, this one thing is what's going on, and we have to stop that.
Have you heard from Microsoft about any repairs?
No.
Obviously, that was a pretty emotional moment for you. What was going through your head right there?
I was frustrated. You know, I was frustrated, very frustrated. You know, again, there's one thing to me too, like, we were just cutting guys loose. I mean, he had 5 touchdown passes and 4 of them were uncovered players. I mean, not like, oh, contested catches or, yeah, something got schemed up. I mean, we were just not even covering guys and dropping guys loose and getting out of things. So, you know, as that just kept building, you know, it was a level of frustration. Obviously, I didn't realize I was going to get captured. I slammed one last year too, and I don't think no one caught it. So it's just that, you know, it was built up, and you know, kind of an outlet. Unfortunately, that was the closest thing I had in my hands, and took it out on an inanimate object. So we'll try to.
Why were the receivers uncovered?
Again, it wasn't, you know, one player or one thing. It was. I mean, I wish I could answer that directly in terms of like, it was communication. I mean, guys are miscommunicating things, not playing techniques the way we're asking them to play techniques. I mean, it was different on every play. Like I said, it wasn't just like one thing of saying, hey, every time we're playing this thing wrong or we're doing this. I mean, there were 3 different coverages in the 3 of the touchdowns that are different coverages, different calls, different techniques, and none of them are being, you know, executed the way we need to execute them. So, but again, that's, you know, the way I look at it, that's all me. if it's not getting done on the field, I start with myself, and I have to re-examine what we're asking those guys to do, and whether it's from a mental standpoint, a physical standpoint, a whatever standpoint, if even if in my mind a scheme is sound or a call is sound and it isn't getting executed on the field, I mean, we have to address why that's happening, and if it's, sometimes as if we're asking them to do something they can't do, or clearly there's things that maybe people can't pick up, or certain players can't handle certain things. I mean, it's all that stuff goes into it. So, again, it's probably the harder part. I wish it would be a lot easier. It would have been a lot easier weekend for me if it was like, hey, this one guy can't play this, or this one call is what's happening here. But again, if that's the issue, it's never going to be a 42-point, 500-yard game, whatever the heck that was, So that would be an easier fix. There's a lot of, again, at every level of the defense, kind of miscommunication, or just between groups and stuff, and really went back to sort of big picture, how everything fits together, and why we're calling the things we're doing, and why we're asking, you to do this job, because it affects how this guy does this job, and it affects how this guy covers this guy, So we had to really get back to that, and having everybody understand they're not independent contractors, and this thing all fits together, and you can't make a decision to say, I'm going to do this to try to make this play, when it trickles down and affects 8 other guys or 10 other guys or whoever it is. So we really got back to that part of things this week a little bit.
What did happen, I guess, and what was supposed to happen on the long Hopkins touchdown?
We're supposed to cover him.
Like whose responsibility was Hopkins on that play?
We're supposed to have a corner take a vertical player out of that. It's a hard play, but obviously we don't have any defense that's designed to not cover anybody. Like that's stupid, So, we're supposed to have a corner. They ran a bunch route and released him over the top of it. We're supposed to squeeze to it. Visually, we saw something different from the back end. We didn't play it the way it was supposed to be played.
When we talked to Adam about the defense, and this is no oversimplification, but he said it's not the scheme, it's the players, more or less, that the plays are being called, they're just not being executed. Is that the way you see it?
Look, man, we're all to blame. And again, I think for me it goes back to a little bit what I just said. Like, possibly, yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with the scheme. Again, we're not designing defenses to cut guys loose in the back end. We're not designing defenses to give up 50-yard runs and not fit things right. So obviously that's not what we're trying to do, and we're not scheming those things up. But and I don't think that we're getting just hardcore scheme where like they're finding weaknesses in our defense in terms of schematic issues. But if players are having trouble executing what we're trying to get done, then we have to find the reasons behind that, and we have to address all of that. And whether it's the stuff that we can't call, whether it sounds great, and hey, we call this play and that's going to be a great call for us, but if it can't get executed, all right, part of that's on me. Yeah, we can keep sitting here and going, wow, they should be able to do that. They should be able to do that. Why aren't they doing that? But at the end of the day, if they can't, then that's something that has to be evaluated. And it's our job as a coaching staff to put our players in the best position to make those plays, and to understand what they can and can't do, what they can play, mentally what they can handle, and how they can execute that, again, as a whole unit. So I'm not going to blame the players. I mean, again, it's my job. It's our job to put those guys in the right spots. And again, some of it maybe to that point, but again, I always start with myself and say, hey, what am I asking these guys to do from a mental standpoint, from a physical standpoint? And if it's not getting done, then it has to be addressed from a coaching level all the way down to a player level. I mean, at some point, they have to learn some shit and play some stuff, excuse my language.
You said you were looking for common threads, and just from the naked eye, it looked like some of those busts were happening with players who are veterans. They're not new to the defense, your calls, the scheme. Is that accurate? And is that concerning?
Well, everything's concerning right now, so yes. To the second part, that'll be a short answer. Again, it was everybody. I think a lot of factors. Again, it's hard to just give simple answers to this. Obviously, there's a lot of complexity going on here, but there's veterans making mistakes that shouldn't be being made. There's also guys pressing to make plays. Now, again, when the mentality of when things start kind of going off the farm a little bit and off the reservation, it's not I'm going to go make the play, because again, understanding how that unhinges everybody else. You know what I mean? So that, like, to me, you're adding fuel to the fire when, this guy's trying to go make a play. So, hey, I'm going to stop this by myself. I'm going to kind of turn the tide here by myself. Well, now you're getting out of position, and you're leaving somebody else hanging out to dry, and then it trickles down. And that guy's saying, well, shoot, I got to do this. That's sort of where the miscommunication, or the just sort of one guy starting it, and then all three levels of defense it's not meshing together properly. It's all concerning to me. It's all concerning that, we have veteran guys that are doing things. Again, whether the motivation is to make a play or the motivation is something else. I mean, again, those are things that we've been going through and addressing and looking at. So, I don't know. It's all concerning to me, and we're trying to address it this week.
Like on one play, I see Bobby McCain chasing a guy, and Rashad Jones is back there, and he decides, the guy's going this way, he decides to go that way. And McCain is like, they played
football for us, and they've played together, and they should be on the same page and communicating better on that. Absolutely.
So are guys just freelancing essentially?
I wouldn't call it that. I mean, I think it's the nature. It's the same as me throwing a tablet. Things start going bad, and everyone's feeling that, and everyone wants to turn it. And sometimes I think they're competitive players. No one wants to be doing what we're doing, say Thursday night. So I think sometimes that they press to make plays, and they try to kind of go a little bit out of the framework. I wouldn't say they're just doing whatever they want out there, but you know what I mean? They're trying to kind of maybe jump a route or do something different, or in the run game, hey, I'm going to just shed this guy and go make this play. I'm going to get a TFL, and that's going to kind of spark us and get us going. So, I think the word freelancing just kind of has more negative intentions to me. I don't think they're just saying, hey, I screw this, I'm going to play whatever I want to play. I think sometimes we're pressing to make plays when, again, especially once kind of that gets rolling, a little bit. So we have to play the calls. I have to make the right calls and put them in the right spot. They have to execute the calls, the techniques we're asking them to play, and we'll be fine.
Are there consequences for those who do not play this game, I guess, repeatedly?
Yep.
Would that be a player starting job?
Could be, absolutely. I mean, listen. If we'd be remiss if we didn't come in this weekend and Adam and I went through a lot of stuff and studied this and again, from a personnel standpoint to a schematic standpoint to an execution, all that stuff. If we didn't address everything and come in with answers and solutions to say, hey, this is what's going on, okay, and it's at all levels. Like I said, there's some scheme stuff that we're tweaking and trying to do some different things, and again, part of that's player base saying, okay, well maybe this guy can do this better than some of the stuff we've been asking him to do. But if there's guys that can't do what we're doing at some point, absolutely. I mean, at some point they take ownership. We're not asking them to do a lot of crazy stuff here. So yeah, I think everyone's aware of where we're at in the season, and having that mini bye week or whatever, kind of having that extended weekend, and I think I want to talk to some of you guys. After the Detroit game, I felt like it was a blessing in disguise. Having the short week, I was like, okay, man, shoot. Like sometimes it's good, just let's move on from that. And obviously it wasn't a one-time thing, so it was hard. It was hard having that. It would have been great having a Thursday night game and feeling good about it, and having a kind of a fun weekend to kind of refresh and rejuvenate. And so it's hard having to chew on that. For 10 days essentially, we're gonna have to. We're still eating that Thursday night game. So it was hard. But again, at some level, in terms of silver lining it, it afforded us some time to really sit down and dig into some things. So we're still going through that process.
How tempting is it to be like, what I'm doing hasn't worked. I'm just going to call way different stuff. Is there danger in that? No, I don't. You know what I mean? Like,
no.
break, like a big time tendency break or whatever.
I mean, there's danger in that. I mean, listen, we spent 8 months now, whatever it's been, from March to now, you know, training in certain techniques and doing things we want to do and trying to get these guys right and put all this work in. I mean, it'd be a little crazy to just say, hey, screw all that, let's do all this instead and ask these guys to learn all new stuff. So I don't think, again, I don't see that as the issue. I really don't. I don't see like our scheme is broken and we're screwed up and all this. Again, now we have a fairly complex scheme and we have a lot of stuff we can call. So it's more of, okay, like maybe this part of it is something that we want to lean more towards this area. You know what I mean? But to me, that would be akin to what I just talked about the players. Of me saying, well, I got to make it right. I'm gonna call this crazy stuff and fix it by doing all this stuff. And now I'm putting those guys in positions they're not used to now and getting them unhinged. And I mean, that'd be me contributing to the chaos, you know. So we have to get better at the stuff we're asking them to do. Period. We have to play the stuff better. I have to make sure that we're asking them to do things that they can do. And when I do that, and if we have determined that they're capable of doing that, and we're asking them to do that, and then they don't, then that's on them, and they have to execute those techniques and those schemes and get this done, because it's just we obviously can't live like this.
Thank you.
All right, fellas.
Thank you.
Yep.